Good afternoon. My name is Roy Kirchner, and we are here with Secrets for Success in 2025. And every Friday at noon, we do Secrets for Success. And this is information to help you thrive in 2025. And I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm located here in Tampa Bay, Florida, and I have my co host, JR, with me. And I'm going to turn it over to JR in just a second to introduce himself. And I just wanted to let you know that if you want to learn anything more about me, please follow me on LinkedIn. JR, go ahead, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Roy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is JR Espino, and I am CEO and president of Alloy Advisors. I'm a business coach, and ultimately, what I do is I help businesses achieve their successes, whether that's their financial performance or having a fully engaged workforce. Coming from corporate America, I'm able to transfer those skills into what I do in helping businesses. And so it's always a great pleasure to be a co-host of Roy's on Secrets for Success in 2025 because it is really meaningful. You know, we have to be really purposeful in our approach. And so I too in the Tampa Bay area, and although both Roy and I are here in Tampa, we have a much further reach than that. So for today, topic for the conversation is work-life balance is a myth and what to strive for instead. You know, subtitle to that would be like how to integrate business success with personal fulfillment, right? Because a lot of times people talk about work-life balance and, oh, I have to do all these different things. And so whether you're a leader, an entrepreneur, an existing or an aspiring, these are definitely topics that will really help us in this specific conversation here. And so, like I had mentioned, you know, if you could please, and maybe I didn't mention it, but please interact with us in the chat. You know, please let us know where you're joining us from. And then as we go along, we would love to be able to hear from you. Any questions that you might have, and please, I'll be asking for some interaction as well. So the first thing is, Roy, I'm going to ask you. Um, that phrase, work-life balance, really gets thrown around a lot. So from your perspective, why do you believe it's a myth?
Well, I think the biggest thing when you look at work-life balance, right, is what stage of your career you are in.
Hmm.
100%, right? Are you established? Are you getting established? Those types of things, because a true work-life balance really comes down to, what you're trying to truly achieve and what you actually have kind of achieved a little bit, right? And we're gonna dig way more into this, right? But I think it has to do not necessarily with age in any way, shape, or form. I have to do with where you're at in your career and then what career you're in. If you're a entrepreneur, if you're a one man band, or if you're running a business, if you're running multiple businesses. But the bottom line, right, is you nowadays you got to put in the time, effort, and consideration
Mm.
to get to the next level, right? So it's that's why we say a kind of a myth, because it's the same thing, right, as success. Success in this world looks different, very different to very different people, right? Some people say like money, having a lot of money is success, right? And some people say having free time, like having more free time, is
Mm.
success. Some people say the amount of people you touch in this world, the things that you do, the people that you change, right, is success. So there's so many different levels. And I think it has to do same with this work-life balance. Now, I think the other part of this has to do with mental toughness,
Mm.
right? Mental toughness plays a big part in this because there's also this, since COVID, there's this different world, right? There's a different world. People, there's remote work that came around, and then most of that remote work is being taken away.
Mm.
All these different things. And we could dive into this. We got an entire hour to dive into it, right? So, JR, you could really, I'm going to switch it back over to you. You pick kind of a topic out of there, and then we'll start hitting it, my friend.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, as far as this whole work-life balance thing, I mean, to your point, there are a lot of different things that have happened in society that cause us to look at how we spend our time, right? And you delved into some of the things around what the definitions of success may potentially be. And so one thing that I used to talk about regularly within my workforce where I had come from was we work to live, we don't live to work, right? We work so we can do the things we want to and need to for our family and our friends. Because ultimately, otherwise, well, why would we work? But the second thing that I would regularly say is that I think it's important to strive for, instead of work-life quote balance, having work-life harmony. And what I mean by that is, if you were to think about a song, right? If you think about a song and harmonies of voices, sometimes one voice may be louder than the other voice. Sometimes one pitch may be higher than the other pitch. Even from an instrument perspective, there may be some times where an instrument is playing faster than the other instrument. And so similarly, when it comes to your work life versus your personal life, sometimes that voice in your work life may be a little bit louder than your personal life voice. Sometimes your personal life voice may be at a different pitch than your work life voice. Sometimes the speed and the pace could be different as well. But the bottom line is you're able to figure it out to have, quote, balance, but harmony, to be able to have that right song, right? So you can achieve whatever that success may look like. And again, going back to my comment earlier, we work to live, we don't live to work. So that's my take on this particular topic, because I think that people often strive for this balance. And it's like, when you think about the word balance, unless it's completely even, if something else needs more attention, then there's like compromise, and you don't want to compromise in that way, right? So we want to keep it as balanced as possible. So let me ask you this, Roy. Can you describe a time when you chased balance and it backfired?
Yeah, I mean, it's just balance is very, very hard. Being an entrepreneur and being a serial entrepreneur, right? Because you're running multiple businesses. And I think it's running a business, right? So running a business at the end of the day, every single thing, and we'll just talk about a single business, right? Everything at the end of the day stops with you. You're
Mm-hmm.
the owner, right? You're the
Mm-hmm.
CEO of a company.
Yeah.
And when you are the owner and the CEO, everything falls at your shoulders. So, when I first opened my first business and I became that, I realized it's so different than corporate world, right?
Yeah.
Because I actually valued my corporate job more. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's like, if you're working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, it's like 501, you actually can release your brain. You can
Yeah.
release it from every single thing that you did at work. And you actually have the right to. You 100% have the right to release it if you're working for somebody, right? And you
Yeah.
can basically take that time from 5 o'clock on, or 5:01 on, and the weekends, right? If that's your schedule, you can take that time, and that time is your time. That time's your 100% time to have family, friends, independence, all these types of things, because it is a job, right? And when you
Mm-hmm.
become an entrepreneur, there's no turning it off. It's always there, and everything falls at your shoulders,
Yeah.
right? And that's why there's less entrepreneurs out there, and then successful entrepreneurs they call the 1%, right? And the 1% truly sacrifices things to get to where they're at, right? And I think one of the biggest things is, there was this thing the other day from Alex Hermosi, right? He said a lot of people, if they want to get to the next step, need to understand the 996 rule, right? 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night, 6 days a week, right? And then the seventh day is your calm, your date of rest, right? But 996 is really, and it's actually more, right? When you're building a business from the ground up, because you're doing everything, like you do it all, right? And especially depending on how the business is growing, you may not even have somebody, and then you build up and you make enough money to get your first, employee or your first team member, right? So some of the balance, right, is not there. It's the sacrificing of having things but the goal, right? Anybody's goal is to have more freedom, right?
Mm.
Or what their goal is. Again, depending on what their goal is. So I think that is a big part of a journey for somebody, right? But I do believe you should definitely have a work-life balance. If you're working for somebody, you should really have clarity with your company, especially if it's like a corporate company,
Mm-hmm.
knowing your schedule, knowing the times you need to be on call and the times that you don't, because that is part of being employed by like a corporation or a larger entity and something like that. And I do believe there's always a special case here and there, but if I worked for somebody, right, and I'm going to take my time. Now, the opportunity of what you do at that time, right? If you want to become more, is really up to you. You know, if I wanted to climb the ladder, the corporate ladder, then you need to understand that in that time frame of being off from work, you actually have another job. And the other
Yeah.
job is taking some of that time and learning, right, how to get to the next level, to get up that corporate ladder, right? To become more in that company, right? And the more you learn, the more you have the opportunity to grow, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times what I tell people, and a lot of people don't get this, you may not be fit to be an entrepreneur, right? You
Mm.
may not be fit to run a business and have your own business, but you are fit to take, when you get out of the regular job that you have, you are
Mm-hmm.
fit enough to climb that ladder, right? And become more by learning and understanding things, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing right now, that people really need to open their eyes and understand that 100% need to be learning. And the thing they need to be learning is artificial intelligence, AI, right?
Yeah.
Because it is changing our world tremendously, enormously. And if you are not spending some time on it every single day, I feel really bad for you, right? Because you may not have a job
Mm.
in the very near future. So you definitely need to wake up and understand that it is your responsibility as a person, the United States or in the world. You need to be educating yourself on this new technology.
Yeah.
JR, I
Yeah.
pass it over to you.
Yeah, gosh, there's a lot to absorb there. So, first of all, really quickly, for those of you who are viewing and my image may be digitized, I apologize. I'm not in my normal studio. But also, we definitely want you to interact with us. So, if you would, drop a fire emoji in the comments if you felt like balance was just another unrealistic goal. And so, that goes to the question that I just asked Roy about, like, have you ever felt burned in, gosh, I'm not able to post my comments. If you ever felt burned, right, in trying to chase work-life balance, right? And so, gosh, my chat isn't even working today either.
No, it is working. I see it, brother.
Okay, good. So I don't see it on my side. All right. Well, anyway,
I
with
see
that
it.
being said,
We're good.
so for me, last week we talked a little bit about burning the candle from both ends, and Roy just talked about that 996, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. And sometimes it can feel like we're chasing. And so one thing that I heard Roy talk about was leading to success. And so, one of the definitions of value that I like to bring up is cost versus benefit determines your value in the thing, right? If the benefit outweighs the cost of something, there's value. And cost isn't just money, cost is time, energy, and effort, right? If the cost outweighs the benefit, there's low or no value. And so as long as the energy that you're expending, that 996, right? All those different things are really helping you achieve the benefits of what you're striving for in your business as a leader, whatever that may look like, then consider that as a version of work-life balance. Again, even though I call it work-life harmony. I call it that because I want you to be able to get to that point where you're able to manage the voices appropriately for what the need is to come up with that right harmony. For me personally, there was a time where I was chasing balance and it backfired. And long ago, again, I came from corporate America and I was assigned to this initiative where there's a backlog of workload, a significant backlog of workload. And this workload had significant financial impact both for the company that I worked for and for our clients. And I was chasing it hard, giving it everything that I could, and wasn't really allowing myself to reset and recharge. And guess what happened? I was so stressed out that I was a young man and I ended up with shingles. I had shingles. I had stress induced shingles. And then that put me out for another month because it just was absolutely terrible. And for me, it helped me realize, gosh, how am I going to achieve my objectives the right way? And part of my problem was trying to do it alone. Now, I regularly say, John Maxwell says, one is too small a number to achieve great things. Anything of historical significance was never done by one person. And so it helped remind me about that I needed to have more people involved. And even the last thing that Roy had mentioned about AI. There are so many different tools and resources today that we can leverage to be more productive. And AI is one of those. Artificial intelligence isn't just about, oh, here comes these robots to take over the world. No, this is about how we can be more productive. Because here's the deal. Time is something you'll never get back. The amount of time that you spend, you will never get that back. So when seeking that work-life balance or work-life harmony, also seek ways to be productive so then you can achieve those things, right? Whether it's people or AI or whatever other tools. So I can go on and on about that because it is, there's so much behind that. So here's a quick rapid fire question for you, Roy. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I am definitely an early bird.
I know. You send me texts at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah. And you know what I feel like if somebody knows me and they definitely know I'm early, right? There's a thing that's on phones that you could silent your notifications, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm that guy, man. I'm up and I'm moving around, bro. I'm shaking and moving. I'm definitely an early person.
Yeah. So actually my next rapid fire question was going to be your phone on airplane mode, often or never, or do not disturb, often or never.
Mine's never. Mine's never, to be honest with you. Mine is always there. Of course, if I'm doing something like even right now, I'm not gonna pick up. I may even put it
Right.
in the other room and separate myself from it. But I don't people can see that you have it in that, and I don't like that anymore. Like I think it's the same thing as like you're restricting the opportunity to grow with that. Now maybe I'm wrong, right? So everybody has their own opinion, but I think some ways like when I message somebody and it says like silent mode or and they even say like you could click it to let it go through or something. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's I think it's kind of strange that other people can see that you're in that silent mode. Now I do like if you're driving and it sends a message saying like I'm driving right now because I
Yeah.
do believe in that safety, right?
Yeah.
So I do believe in that, but it's a little bit different, right? Yeah, for
Yeah.
communication purposes.
Yeah. So here's another rapid fire question. What's one non-negotiable part of your daily routine? And actually, viewers, if you could chat that for us as well, even though I can't see the chats on my side, maybe Roy can address those. But what's one non-negotiable part of your daily routine, Roy and our viewers?
Yeah, mine is definitely the ability to wake up, right, and have a little bit of my own time. One
Mm,
million percent. I think everybody has to have a little bit of their own time, whether they're praying or they're thinking
mm,
about their life or they're growing or they're listening to something inspirational. You have to block out, right, your time. Right, you
mm-hmm.
definitely do, and mine is in the morning. But I think every single person should definitely have a piece of time that is theirs, right? And I mean, 100% theirs.
Yeah.
So I think that really, really makes a difference. So, but when we talk about, it's interesting because when we talk about this work-life balance, right? I want to bring up the fact that there's social capital now, right?
Yeah.
So let's bring up the fact that a lot of business transactions are actually done in time that you're really not working, you're networking, right? So, I mean, me and you just had this conversation, JR. Like last night, you did something that you truly, I know, enjoy doing. You put on a car show, right? And when you put on this car show, there was like 200 people there, but there's a lot of business professionals, right? And you're enjoying something, you're truly enjoying something that you're passionate about, right? But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, you're actually meeting new people, you're connecting to people that your friends, maybe even family that comes there, right? And it's considered you're doing kind of like the both. So I think it's in that work life balance, right? But you're mixing it in a way that allows you or allows a person to enjoy something, but at the same time network and grow and meet new people or see people that you want to see, all these different types of things, right? So I think that's a big thing because to grow, um there's two ways you grow, right? One,
Mm-hmm.
100% is knowledge, understanding knowledge. And I definitely think the second way you grow is social capital, right? Like who you are in this world, because sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know and different things like that. And whether people want to admit it or not, finding a coach, right? Or finding a mentor or learning from other people. I'm at where I'm at today because of that, right? I'm 1,000,000% where I am because I connected with people that allowed me the opportunity to learn from them. And I think that's a big thing nowadays. And I think it's a tremendous thing to surround yourself with people that can help you tremendously grow and keep you in a positive light, whether you're paying for a coach, right? And people don't get this. Like, this is the most important thing that I'm telling you. And they're not understanding that people's lives are busy. They're
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah.
Like they're 100% busy. So how do they, even like a serial entrepreneur like me, how do I want to see everybody succeed. I want to see people succeed in this world. I want to see everybody succeed. If you're there's a line where I am a coach, right? I coach people. And when I coach people, right, it takes my time. And my time, and this is one of the things that people need to realize too, is time is money.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the main things that I recommend every single person is knowing what they're worth every single hour. Like seriously, knowing what they're worth every single hour. Like
Mm-hmm.
how much is my business is bringing in? What am I really making an hour, right? And if I'm taking the time to help somebody as like a coach or a consultant, they have to pay me, right? Because if not, I can do something else, like work on one of my businesses and make probably way more money. But I truly enjoy showing people how to become successful in this world, right? And I truly enjoy keeping people in a positive manner because I've learned how to have mental toughness. I truly have, right? I've learned to overcome obstacles. I've learned to do these things. And that is something that I think is gigantic, but there's a light because people need to understand, right? That one, you have to want it within yourself. And then two, if you really want somebody that has done that and built up a resume like me and you, JR, right? It does cost money, right? Because our
Yeah.
time is worth money.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And my chats are back up, so I see those. So thank you for those of you who are interacting with us. Brett, yeah, you comment here. Work-life balance is what you level set yourself as acceptable based on your goals, not what you showed up wanting. I love that. And cost versus benefit is what decides how uncomfortable you're willing to be and for how long, right? And exactly, going back to my comment about like determining value and like what you want to be able to put into it. Christina, thank you for that fire emoji. If you ever felt like balance was just another unrealistic goal. And yeah, that's the reality of it. And Pamela, you had a question in here. How do you determine where the boundaries are set regarding balance? So I'll answer that really quickly, and then I'll turn over to you, Roy, to answer that. So, how I personally determine where the boundaries are, how I determine where the boundaries are. with regarding balance, again, it sort of goes into that cost versus benefit, right? What am I willing to give up? Because I said earlier, balance is about something that gets compromised. And so ultimately, I try to look for what are the ways that I can optimize. And that's actually one of the things that I focus on as a business coach is processes. And how do I optimize something, or how do I help my client optimize something so that they can have the right balance that they want, right? So they can do the things that they want to, whether it's for their business or for their family and friends. So that's my starting point with those boundaries. Now, the other part of it is you said it, Roy, that time is money. And I said earlier that time is something you'll only spend, you'll never get back. And so we need to value and respect our time. We need to respect our own time and take ownership of it, because it's very easy for someone else to take it. Earlier this week, I actually facilitated a business education series here in Tampa in the business lab, and it's funny, it's the myth again, but it was the myth of multitasking. And one of the things that I dove into there was you need to protect your time, because you need to be able to execute on those different things. And a comment that I learned long ago, for you entrepreneurs or you leaders, and one of your employees comes knocking on the door, knock, 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 knock. Hey, you got a minute? And you say, yeah, sure. And then it turns into 10 minutes, and now you're late for a meeting, right? What I learned a long time ago is I have a meeting in 10 minutes. The next 7 minutes is yours. Go. Or whatever it may be. Maybe I don't have that knock, knock, knock. Do you have a minute? Actually, no, I don't. How about let's schedule what we're going to talk about and protecting that time. So those are a couple of ways that I focus on boundaries is, that process improvement mentality, the cost versus the benefit, the value. What am I actually going to get out of it? Roy, how about you? How do you determine where the boundaries are set regarding balance?
I mean, just to be straight with you, right? And I really have thought about it this week, and it's kind of interesting because people call me, and no disrespect, sometimes they chit chat, but they're actually calling me for one purpose, right? And sometimes I actually have to say, man, like I'm tied up. Like, what did you call me for? And
Yeah.
then I can answer that, and that was the thing. And I know chit chatting is the great, but again, time management is the most important thing, right? And to be successful, it really is your time management. It's understanding how much your time is worth, right? And it's putting barriers within. So I think it's really hard sometimes, right? Because people don't realize, right, that you're trying to get, depending on what you're doing, you're trying to get to the next level, and you got to be respectful of people's time
Yeah.
at that. And you know what? There's certain times during the day I'm not out networking, right? I'm in the business, and I'm in my businesses, and I'm working in my businesses, and or I'm working on my businesses even, right? And I don't have the time to chit chat sometimes. So it is setting boundaries, right? I truly believe it is setting boundaries for yourself and for other people. And maybe and that's something, again, I'm even trying to figure out myself, because I don't want to be come off
Mm.
that way. But this week I had multiple people call me, and they just started chatting, right? And I'm like listening, and I'm like, and I know there's a reason why they're calling me, but no joke, it was like 5-10 minutes of them just talking without me even saying anything before they got to the actual point of what they were calling me for. And again, this is so hard because I'm really truthful. Sometimes I just need you to get to the point, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm in the middle of doing something. So it's those types of things. But yeah, I think it's really time management is hard. I see it more and more, creating your time calendar and taking the time to do certain things. And definitely, you got to have your time, right? You got to have your time. I mean, my time, what helps me tremendously, with mental toughness and mental clarity, is I'll just give it, it's a hack. Every single thing that makes me upset in an entire day, in an entire day I actually hold within myself. And then people think like I'm a pretty big guy, I work out, but I don't go to the gym necessarily to be a big guy and work out. I actually go to the gym and I push all that out. Like that's
Mm,
my time to like everything that frustrates me and pisses me off. I go to the gym and I push it out. And that is a healthy way because then I'm not exploding on somebody, right?
yeah,
And that is the way that I do it. So people are like, man, you must work out a lot. I work out a lot because when you have multiple businesses, right? And you have all these people and all these things coming, that's how I relieve the bad part of in the stressful part of what it is in that way. So I think people have to find releases. They do. They have to find a release, right? And it's very good to harness those types of things and not to react right at the certain point, right? And I think that's a lot of what people do too is they react. They react at that exact time. I've learned the worst thing that you can actually do, right? The worst thing you can do is react to something that's making you upset. It's better to hold it within and let you analyze it and then
mm,
come back to it, right? Because it could cost you team members, it could cost you a job, it could cost you a friendship, it could cost you all these things that you really don't want it to cost you. It's just like sometimes let's say it, right? An email or a text definitely can misconstrue something compared to having a conversation.
yes,
And like there could be there's miss things in there, right? Like you could be misunderstanding what somebody says. And I think that's in life, right? Is when you have something, having the ability to like let it come in and then analyze it yourself and
yeah.
think about it and even maybe talk to somebody about it before you react to it. And I think that's a level of understanding when you can start doing that that can help you be more successful.
Yeah, for sure. Just a lot there. So, real quick in the chat, viewers, I'm going to put a quick poll out here. Do you time block your personal life like your business calendar, right? Yes, no, or I try to. So, take a look at that. And if you could chat to us, do you time block your personal life like your business calendar? Because that's a big part of our conversation here is time. And the fact that you said it right off the top of that last segment here, Roy, when somebody calls you and they're chit chatty, chit chatty, chit chatty, you just want to get to the point. And part of that is because you have something you need to achieve. And quite frankly, sometimes that can be frustrating. That could be frustrating because then it's like, oh my gosh, you're not respecting my time, person on the other end of the phone. And I always say frustrations come from a missed or mislaid expectation. And so, it goes back to a comment I made earlier about like, hey, you know what? I have 4 minutes. The next two are yours. So that's one thing to consider as we all try to strive for that kind of balance. And you had mentioned too about those relationships. Relationships are key. I'll even go back to a comment you made even earlier around the event that I helped host last night. And so, I am a car enthusiast. I'm a member of a business club here in the Tampa area, the Center Club. For anyone who's interested, let me know. But I get to be around a lot of different people and put a lot of energy into that and put a lot of energy into helping create this environment where we had over 200 people there. And it wasn't just about car enthusiasm. It was networking. As I was interacting with people throughout the evening or following up with them and just checking in, seeing how it was, that they were able to exchange business cards or make new contacts, things like that. And while that took a lot of energy in that moment and setting up all the cars, staging all the cars. We had over 50 cars there from Lamborghinis, McLarens, a lot of Porsches, a lot of Porsches. Um, it was almost draining. And funny thing is, I was talking with my fiance earlier, and she said, "Hey, are you feeling that sort of lag right now? Are you feeling that day after, almost like hangover, feel like put all this energy into it and now you're exhausted?" And my answer was actually no, you know? And part of it is because of the expectation I set for myself in that with the amount of energy that I put forth for that work-life balance. while that wasn't work, that is something that I do as a member of the club. I'm chairman of the fun club committee of the club, and it's important to me that something like that really is successful. Um, so here we also have in the chat here Brett, probably from an earlier comment about resetting, stretching, and exercise with music. I love that. We have to take that personal time. That even ties to what Roy was talking about with working out. He's not necessarily working out simply to get big or bigger because he's a big dude. He isn't doing it to increase his strength for athletic purposes, but leveraging that as a release, leveraging that as an opportunity for a reset. So, Brett, thank you for that comment. And Johnny, going into the networking, you had mentioned, I found that since I've gotten into the nonprofit space, I've met amazing people. And yeah, this community that we have, I mean, I know Johnny locally here in Tampa, I know that we have really, really great people and have amazing people. And it goes back to a comment that we spoke about a while back, and that is the people you surround yourself with is who you become. So love that. And then Johnny, you work out to intimidate your daughter's boyfriends. Okay, gotcha. It is hilarious. And then I see here on my quick poll about blocking your personal time like your business calendar. Yes, no, or I try to. Johnny, you say yes. I personally do that. I mentioned this last week when, or maybe, but I don't know. I mention it a lot, and that is I'll even put on my calendar windshield time. I protect my time in that way. If it's not on my calendar, the likelihood of it happening is very slim. It needs to be on my calendar, and that's personal and professional. So I absolutely do that. Roy, do you do that? Do you time block your personal life like your business calendar?
Not as well as I should.
That's fine.
No. Yeah, I mean, no. The answer is actually no. I do not. I will say this. Um, I work hard and I play
Yeah,
hard. So I do both, okay? I take breaks, like go on a vacation, more like I'll block myself for something like that than and I'll overwork. Like that's just me.
yeah,
Um and that's how I realize that I can get to the next level,
yeah.
right? Is that so? But I do definitely realize 100% when I I need to not do like the 996 9 a.m.
Hmm.
because I'm up at 4:30, so it's a little bit different. But I sometimes I go 7 days a week, but I have that mental toughness to do that. So that is definitely not everybody,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't, and I'm really good at managing my time because I have a lot of things going on, right?
Hmm.
So I'm good at doing those things. But you have to, that's the biggest thing that we're talking about here is you have to figure out how to each day get better,
Yeah.
right? So if you're not getting better each day, then like you're really not moving forward. So
Hmm.
I'm a very big component of being a life student and learning constantly from people around me, right? That I don't know everything, and I definitely don't know everything, right? And I always am willing to listen to people and soak up
Yeah,
knowledge, right? And that is a big thing. And not everybody has that, right? Not everybody has that type of personality, but I do,
yeah,
right? And then I know when I'm truly burnt out.
yeah.
And then I have to take time off, right? So it's knowing those things. And I think, we've talked about this a little bit before, JR, but how do you know that? How do you know those things, right? Well, let me tell you how you know those things. One is you can take personality tests,
Hmm.
like personality actual tests. And the other is you can start using that, cutting it through AI like ChatGPT and breaking down your weaknesses and start working on your weaknesses. And then breaking down even your strengths and realizing how you use your strengths to help you more. Right. So in using technology to help you grow, but the number one thing is realizing right? Where you sit in this world. And there's a couple things that we're going to talk about here, right? One is your health,
Yeah.
the actual, your physical health,
Yeah.
right? Because the number one thing that you want to do is have longevity, right? You want to have, you don't want to be sick,
Right.
right? And you want to enjoy your life and you want to be healthy. And sometimes we're not all Tom Brady, where people think like Tom Brady. No, Tom Brady spins, he has the best health, has the best everything, has the best chef, has the best, has the best like jaw, has the best
Not the
everything,
best
workout
marriage, though.
equipment, has the best.
I'm just kidding.
No, no, no,
Okay.
not there. But I'm
Yeah.
saying when it
Yeah.
comes to health
Yeah.
wise, his
Yeah.
body's like 18 years old,
Yeah.
basically, right? And
Yeah.
he's in his 40s. So one is that too, right? Then your brain, your mental clarity,
Yeah.
right? And then also, right? And then you just keep on working on these things. But the first thing is you got to know them. You got
Hmm.
to know them. I mean, there's a lot of people that aren't really even realizing where they sit physically, mentally, emotionally. So the first thing you got to do is you got to figure those things out, right? Is where you actually sit. And if you haven't done that, I recommend you doing that, right? And then start using that data, analyzing that data to make yourself better, right? So,
Yeah. So, one of the things where I was gonna go here based on what you said, because you're talking about when you need to unplug. You talked about, I asked you the question like, do you block time in your calendar? But then you are self-aware enough to be able to take time away and things like that. And so sometimes, especially entrepreneurs or leaders who have high stakes in their organization, sometimes they have guilt, right? Sometimes they have guilt about time away from work. Sometimes they have guilt about being at work and time away from their family, yeah, man, there was a time, and this is right around the same time where I experienced the shingles, where I was, prior to that role, I was traveling the country, travel every 3 to 4 weeks. I'd be gone. I'd be back. And my daughter at that time was young. I want to say she was about 4, maybe 5 years old at that time. And then fast forward, she was 10 years old and I was commuting 110 miles per day. And this was in the Chicago area. And so I would have to leave before she would wake up because of all the traffic. I would have to leave before she would wake up. I would work a really, really, really long day and I would get home after she was asleep. I remember one day so clearly. I'm driving into work and I get a phone call. And I don't normally get a phone call from my home phone number. I get a phone call and I answer. I'm like, what's going on? And then so my daughter gets on the phone. Again, she's 10 years old. And she says, Daddy, I miss you. That broke my heart because even though prior to that I would travel and be gone for a week at a time, I was absent because of the fact that I was leaving my home when it was dark out, coming back when it was dark out, and not spending time with my family. And so that changed a lot for me in my perspective on how I'm going to have harmony in my life with what I'm willing to, quote, put up with for what I want to be able to achieve professionally and personally.
yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing, right, is the number one thing is you have to admit that you're having an issue, is the first thing. And then the second thing is get clarity on what that is, right? And then the third thing um is seek some type of advice from a knowledgeable person that can provide you the correct advice, right? And there's coaching, there's consulting, or there's psychiatrist, psychologist.
Yeah.
It just depends on what the topic is, right? But it's really to get into the ability to become an entrepreneur, you have to start building mental toughness. If you don't have the mental toughness, the number one thing I say is you have to remember, in this planet, on this planet, the number one thing there's no such thing as the word quit. Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't exist,
Yeah.
right? So it's those types of things. And I think that's a big part of this. And we're always here, right, to talk about any topic during these, Secrets for Success 2025. We want to provide value. We want to provide value every single week, week after week. So we're always here to give information on how we oversee things and
Yeah.
provide advice and provide clarity and different things like that. And we're almost at the shut off point today.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, I love doing this every single week and trying to always provide as much great advice as we can for people to be successful in 2025.
Yeah.
What would you say, JR?
Yeah, I follow suit with that, having that level of self-awareness and taking action. I think I said it last week. I was in a networking environment and one of my friends was answering the question of the week, and the question of the week was, what are some common phrases that people say that sort of irk you? And the phrase that bothered him is knowledge is power. We're like, wait, what is that? What? And he said, it's not knowledge, it's action is power. And so that self-awareness, if you are experiencing that guilt, knowing what is causing that and then taking action with it, then you're going to always do the right thing. And speaking of action, I really do invite all of you who are viewing, whether you're watching with us live or you are watching the recording. Roy and I do this every Friday because we want to be able to help and support people. One action that I would love for you to take is to message us with what are some of the other types of struggles you're navigating through so we could potentially include that as a topic for a future episode. But the other thing is both Roy and I are consultants. We have our own lines of business in consulting people and coaching people. And so if you heard anything today that it strikes intrigue or piques your interest, please reach out to us to see how we can help you in that particular area. Roy is a very, very successful serial entrepreneur and has grown many different businesses. I am really successful as a corporate person who has transitioned into the entrepreneurial life. And we do want to give back and give back. And we will also want to give back in a more intimate setting as well, and building relationships with you as our viewers so that then we can multiply the value that we have besides just this type of session here. So, call it a shameless plug. It's not, because this is our call to action for you, is to really be purposeful about your growth, be purposeful about secrets for your success in 2025. Roy mentioned their resources, personality tests, coaches, consultants. We are two of those people, and we would love to be able to support you. Roy, thank you as always for allowing me to be your co-host on this, and I really enjoy our conversations. I really love continuing to learn from you. We bounce ideas off of each other because we are able to have that humility to know that we can make each other better based on the insights that we can share. So thank you, Roy, for allowing me to co-host with you. I'll turn it back to you to close us out.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful and blessed weekend. And we look forward to you next week. Thank you and talk to you soon.
Wait,
Bye bye.
do we have one next week? It's 4th of July next week.
Is it 4th of July, right?
It is.
We may change the date. I
Yeah,
think we'll change the date to earlier in the week.
yeah.
So
Let's shoot for
um,
Wednesday.
let's shoot for Wednesday. Absolutely. So we'll send that out. We'll do Wednesday instead of Friday.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Roy.